Galactic Standard Date. Year 11356. Day 90. Sol Standard Date. 4th of the 2nd, 3267. Tama felt like he couldn't breathe. The giant that he stood next to now looked so much smaller through the rift in reality. It didn't even make him much further than the ankle of this monstrosity. He looked around at the veil around him. He could make out various silhouettes of beings that were undoubtedly dead. The ground he tread upon was covered in contorted formations that looked as though a being had been born into the rock and tried to claw their way out screaming. The sky went on into infinity, and he could hear the screaming of an uncountable number of lost souls. The screaming seemed both distant and right beside him at the same time, somehow. Tama looked at Sliv, who was literally shaking in fear as he wound past the stone faces and in between stone appendages. Tama looked back to the imposing giant who was carrying the unconscious Elenia and traumatized Saren. "What is your name? Why have you brought us here?" he asked. The figure looked down with glowing green eyes. "You may call me Basileus. I brought you here because you're about to fly into a combat zone between my people and the Azarians. I apologize for the scare. You little guys are super adorable, but I scared the actual shit out of you. Sorry." He paused. "What's your name?" he asked. Tama just let his mouth hang open. He looked at Sliv, who had just stopped staring deadpan at Basileus. "That was not exactly what I had been expecting," he said. "My name is Tama. The man to my left is Sliv. The two you have in your arms are Elenia, who is currently unconscious, and Saren, who is curled into a ball." Basileus looked down at Saren. "Is it okay if I pet you, little one?" he asked. Saren just nodded his head while shivering. Basileus took one finger and gently scratched just behind his ear. Saren stopped shivering, and his breathing slowed. "You know, I gave one of you little guys to sweet little Catherine for her 7th birthday. I wonder if the little tiger's still around," he said, absent-mindedly. Basileus looked back at Tama. "So, what were you expecting from me?" he asked. Tama just watched awestruck as the giant calmed down Saren with just the touch of his finger. Well, you both look and feel incredibly deadly," he said sheepishly. "Then there was your literal magical entrance. Honestly, we had all assumed that the incarnation of death had come for us," he said. Basileus snorted a laugh. "Ha! You aren't exactly far off the mark, little one. I am not the incarnation of death. I am only his chosen," he said. Tama and Sliv just blinked. "You're what?" they asked in unison. Basileus locked eyes with Tama. "Enough about me. We are almost back to my ship. After that, I have to go retrieve your friends," he said. Tama cocked his head to the side. "What friends?" he asked. Basileus stopped and looked down at Tama. "The other ship of similar make to your own that was heading there. It was only an hour or two behind you, though they were coming in from a different angle," he said, as he started moving again. Tama thought on it for a moment. "When we get out of this terrible place, show me where they came from. I have an idea on who they are," he said. Basileus waved his hand, and green fire appeared in front of him. He reached inside of it with his free hand, and a fully opened rift appeared in place of the flames. "Had to lock the doors just in case anyone wanted to come in without my permission," he said with a smile. Tama stepped through with Basileus to an array of soldiers who were just standing and saluting. That's when it hit him. "You're Terrans. Our report said you might be just over 4 feet tall. You are clearly not just over 4 feet tall. Well, whatever, I'm over being shot for today. After all, nothing compares to a giant opening a magic death portal on your ship," he said, clearly exhausted. Basileus looked at Aurelius. "Get this man map data on that other unknown ship. He wasn't aware of its existence, so it may not be friendly after all," he said. Aurelius snapped another salute before pulling up map data on the ship. "Here you are, little badger person," he said questioningly. Basileus set the other two down in beds that had just been created using nanites. "So, are they friend or foe?" he asked. Tama looked at Basileus. "They appear to have come from the High Council's world, likely Spec Ops. I have need to speak with your leader. I was to come here as an ambassador and negotiate peace with the Terran Cargo Freighters Guild," he said. The whole bridge crew collectively facepalmed. Basileus groaned. "Catherine, you have led me quite the mess," he said. I am the Emperor of all Terrankind. What did you need to talk about? He asked. Tama's eyes widened. I hadn't expected to get a personal visit from the very man I was looking for, honestly. I thought I was done being shocked, but I guess I was wrong, he said. I need to know if the free attendee who defected are all right. We care for our own, he said. Basilisk smiled a half-hearted smile at Tama. That's honestly really good to hear. We may have a great friendship in the future. The attendee ambassadors are just fine, by the by. They are being spoiled to high heaven by someone you can trust, he said. Tama felt relief for the first time in days. I need to bring this news. He was cut off by the alarms wailing on the bridge. Everyone had cleared out and moved back to their stations, aside from Basilisk and Aurelius. Basilisk had a cold, hardened look. Aurelius was just waiting for input from Basilisk. Basilisk's eyes turned from a faint green glow to a pale green fire. I can feel several warlord class. It is as we feared. There are more than one. I feel at least 5 warlord class as well as a possible queen class, he said. Aurelius's features turned grim. What is the fire plan, my lord? He said. Basilisk pondered for a moment. We still have a superiority even with all that. We will fire our main Nova cannon at one of the rifts as soon as a warlord or higher unveils itself. Have the capital ships prepare their C+ cannons to unleash on one of the other rifts. They should be able to kill a warlord with that much firepower. Next, have the rest of the fleet open with their particle lancers and railguns in concentrated fire on the next warlord. Make them save their missiles for any of the small Azarian landing troops. They will be an effective hunter-killer of the little guys. Relay and repeat until warlord menace is erased. As for the possible queen, that will have to be last, and it will have to be focused on by the entire fleet, he said. Aurelius snapped off a salute and ran off to go relay the orders. Basilisk looked out into the dark expanse. Tama saw the look in Basilisk's eyes through the pale flames, and Tama could see a vision of the soul of the man who had fought endlessly for over 1,000 years. The man's soul was chained with willpower, but it looked as though he was the incarnation of hatred and death. Scars riddled his soul. Each scar burned with a silent hatred, and he was surrounded by death. Tama blinked, and the vision disappeared. Tama thought to himself, how could this being be both so gentle and so terrified at the same time?